Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of LPSTV. I'm Roman coming at you from Dublin, Ohio. Didn't think I'd be making a second video this soon, but with last week's events, I think I need to take this time to offer a little bit of clarification on what happened. And we got some good content from Justin Fleischman that I'll tag on to the end of this video for you guys to see. But first, we'll just jump right into it. A little explanation of where I was coming from with the IDP thing. Why I thought it was a good idea and such. So I sat down and was thinking, we've been doing the same thing for a real long time in LPS. Like I said before, we made some changes to the scoring system, nothing too crazy. I was just trying to think, it's time for something different. What can I do to shake things up a little bit this year, break up the monotony of what we do. And with the success of the LPS Fantasy Baseball League, I know the majority of you guys are in that league as well. We have much bigger rosters. A lot more research goes into that. Pitchers, you got starters, closers, relievers, all the different hitters. So I thought with everyone managing rosters that are that big, putting in all the more work and more research, I thought, well, maybe with IDPs, yeah, it adds to the roster, makes the draft longer, requires more research. But I thought it would be something that everyone would enjoy, given what we saw in the baseball league. But clearly, it's not the case. There's plenty of outlash against that. I'm man enough to admit that it was a bad idea to just spring it on you guys like that. We're going to probably trial it. It sounds like in another league that a couple of us are in. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll be something that we can bring back to discuss in 2018. But I do apologize for the sudden nature of that announcement. We'll try and prevent that from happening in the future. I do plan on keeping kicker scoring. What I had mentioned previously, 3 points for a field goal, 1 for an extra point. I don't plan on changing that. But any other discussion that you guys want to have about roster changes or scoring changes, feel free to bring it up. I'm open ears about all that stuff. I would like to have everything ironed out by June 17th for the draft order, just so that when everyone's preparing, we know what we're preparing for in the draft. I'll probably do another video next week, actually, on looking at the different types of defense and special teams scoring. Probably present you guys with a few different options that we could possibly look at as far as changing that. But yeah, that's all I really got on the IDP front. A couple other things to talk about. The 2017 league page is reactivated. So yeah, if you can go on there, you'll see that it is open for use now. I've talked to Joe Brucker about getting me commish powers. He should be doing that sometime in the very near future. So I'll start to post videos like this and other things on the message boards and league manager notes and so on and so forth. I'll keep posting all this stuff in the GroupMe chat as well, so no need to worry about that. Last thing I want to discuss before turning you guys over to Justin is a segment that I think is going to be a reoccurring one by the looks of it, called What is Jason Thinking? So two things here. This week, Thursday night, NFL draft, chat's hopping, everyone's sending messages, mock drafting, who's going to take who. No word from Jason, not a single peep. He's Snapchatting pictures of him watching the draft, smoking his hookah, can't be bothered to touch his phone. That's fine, whatever. One message Friday night to talk about the James Conner drafting to the Steelers. Cool. Saturday, 12 noon, just lighting up the chat for rounds 4 through 7 in the NFL draft. Come on, Jason. No one cares about rounds 4 through 7. Got to participate in the chat when everyone's there, not when we're all doing stuff on Saturday afternoon. Second thing is beautiful Facebook post by Jason. Ordering my TJ Watt jersey right now. He was great in the Big Ten championship game against PSU. Now I need the Steelers to get Chris Godwin, wide receiver from PSU, Jake Butt, tight end from Michigan, and Desmond King, cornerback from Iowa. Guess what, Jason? Rooney family ain't sitting in there picking their nose and picking their ears saying, oh, we're going to draft these Big Ten guys because they played in the Big Ten. And I'm not running out to buy my Deshaun Watson jersey because he threw for 580 yards and 3 touchdowns in a loss against Pitt. Just like how TJ Watt played great in a loss against Penn State. No one cares. It doesn't matter. No one cares about conference affiliation. All right? Just stay in your lane, kid. All right, and now that I got that out of my system, I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys with Justin. He's going to do a very good, in-depth, thorough discussion on value-based drafting. So thanks for viewing, and I'll see you guys next week.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is your favorite league bottom feeder, Justin Fleischman here, coming at you with some content on the NFL draft, actually. So basically, I only had time to do the first round for this, I know that in the chat we've had a lot of interest recently in the NFL draft, looking at kind of player evaluation and who would be a steal in different points in each round. So I decided to throw together kind of a value-based analysis of the first round only, just because it was difficult to collect all kinds of player data as the draft was going on. But this is a purely value-based approach, so it's going to take into account only player ability and best player available information only, with no regard for positional need or any kind of variance delinquency that all these players have. So step one was to assign each draft pick its own value number. So the way I did this is NFL teams use this kind of draft calculator over here to assign a numerical value to each draft pick. As you can see, I modeled this in a graph here, and the blue dots here represent that curve. A lot of it you can see is kind of regressive, logarithmic rate. So what I did is I took a best fit curve and matched it to an actual logarithm, so there were no kind of inconsistencies. If you were to look at these blue points only, there's kind of some jumps in here that didn't really make much sense. But what teams use this for is so when they're trading draft picks, these numbers should end up being roughly the same. And if you look, actually, for example, the Packers trade this year that they used to trade down out of the first round, I think netted them like a plus 18 or something. And the lowest one in the first round, according to this, is here, 590. So generally those things add up pretty well, but I wanted to use a logarithm just to make it a little simpler. So coming back to the player rankings, what I did is I took ESPN's player rankings before the draft, just on best player available, and I assigned them the first 50, 1 to 50, all the point value that would come from that logarithmic chart. So starting at 2800, and that goes down to about 400 or so, again following that curve. Then what I did is I just entered what the actual draft was for the first round. So here you can see kind of the way that came out. It ends up being the end of the first round, 650 for this, but I had to model out the player list a little bit more for people that were taken outside of ESPN's top 32. So anyway, what the spreadsheet does is it checks the names of the actual drafted players, this could be expanded out further, against the best player available board, and compares the two numbers and determines the adjusted value based on what they got versus what their actual draft position was. And then on top of that, I used that same curve along with the table where it went beyond where the curve was kind of valid. So down for 4th and 5th round picks over here. I just used these numbers. It generally lines up the same. But what I used that for was the trade adjustment. So, for example, where the Bears traded down their first round pick here, this was the 67th pick and the 111th in this draft, along with a future third rounder. So I took the average of a third round, according to the table for the future, as well as the exact number from the table for 67 and 111. And then use that as an adjustment to give them extra negative for the value that they gave up in order to trade up. So basically what came out of this was a number. It's mostly on kind of an order of magnitude scale, so it's kind of hard to determine who the exact best is. But using all the picks for the various teams, here's kind of the list that came out. So as you can see, all the teams that managed to trade down kind of got the most value. There are some inconsistencies to this, but the most glaring thing is that down here from 29 to 31 are all the teams that traded up for a quarterback. So on top of the trade value being a significant part of it, if you go back to the player listing here, the highest rated quarterback were actually Trubisky and Watson at 27 and 28. So it was really sacrificing a lot of value to trade up into the top 10 to get a quarterback, or especially in Chicago's case, where they were planning to take a quarterback number 3, traded to number 2 to get the 27th ranked player. And that's where it becomes so negative. Kansas City actually came out higher negative just because of the value that they gave up for the trade. So because they had to trade up 17 spots instead of just the one, they actually gave up next year's first round pick, as did Houston. But the average of a first round pick, according to the draft value chart, is actually 1,158 of these so-called draft points. And it's a very similar number if you average out for the chart over here. But as you can see, that kind of illustrates how highly emphasized quarterbacks are. And if you're drafting from a value point of view, you're really sacrificing a lot there. So if you know you need a franchise quarterback, it's really going to hurt you in terms of player value overall. The final thing that I wanted to touch on was the player values. So there were a couple of slides in the first round, mostly because of teams trying to target offense in the top few picks. Examples of this were the run on wide receivers here at 5, 7, and 9. 2 running backs being taken in the top 10, which is extremely rare, and then obviously the 3 quarterbacks that were all overdrafted. So this allowed for players like Jonathan Allen and O.J. Howard to fall down and give their teams really good value numbers. And the interesting about that is the top 5 of the values were Allen, Howard, and then Reuben Foster, Jamal Adams, who actually got a really high value number, even though he only slipped a couple spots, just because being the second-ranked player is worth so many of these, again, so-called draft points. And then Solomon Thomas for the same reason. And the reason why he got so much value was actually because of the 49ers trade. But as far as the players go, 3 of those top 4 were all from Alabama, which is interesting because to me, it seems almost like teams valued the fact that their roster as a whole was so good that all the players kind of boosted each other. I don't know if that's an accurate analysis or not, but to me it seems like those teams got really good value from a defensive system that plays really pro style. So that was one of the more interesting things to me. All in all, between trading and player value, it seems as though the teams that sacrifice immediate value are the ones that are trying to rebuild and target specific positions. Again, like Houston did. Houston, Chicago, Kansas City. And then the ones that kind of got that player value back in trades are the ones that look good. Obviously, this doesn't always hold true in the long run, as all the picks that Cleveland has accumulated in the past have turned out to be not so great. But it is interesting the way that if you look at it from an immediate point of view, the teams that are trying to win now almost look worse. So that was just a quick analysis I wanted to do to kind of just see where a value-based approach lies. I know that the Steelers a lot of times target the best available player, as they did a couple times in this draft. So I wanted to see kind of on a numeric scale how that lies. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks a lot for taking a look.